A land where ancient mounds touched the sky, where cotton fortunes were built on suffering, where footsteps on a bridge changed a nation. This is Alabama, the state that witnessed America's darkest hours and brightest hopes. The history of Alabama isn't just Southern history, it's where America's conscience was forged in fire and freedom songs. Whispers beneath the mounds. Long before the first European footstep disturbed its red soil, Alabama pulsed with the sacred rhythm of a forgotten world. Towering earth mounds rose from the riverbanks, silent sentinels of the mighty Mississippian civilization, whose people wove intricate rituals into the land beneath the southern sun. In places like Moundville, an ancient city of temples, plazas, and dreams, the air once shimmered with chants and firelight as priests communed with gods unknown to the outside world. From the depths of time, the southeastern ceremonial complex emerged not as a shadow of Mesoamerica, but as a distinctly southern vision, an echo of a spiritual universe born from the earth itself. Around them, the Alabama, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Creek nations lived, traded, and warred, each with tongues of fire and myth, bound by ancient bloodlines and mysteries now half buried in forest and field. This was Alabama's first heartbeat, ancient, vibrant, and vanishing into legend. Clash of Empires, the struggle for Alabama. Beneath the sweltering southern sky, the land that would become Alabama was a chessboard for empires, Spanish, French, British, and finally, American, all vying for dominion over its rivers and riches. Hernando de Soto's armored procession thundered through native lands in 1540, sowing fear and fire at Mobile, only to vanish back into legend. The French raised their fleur-de-lis at Mobile in 1702, dreaming of a new Louisiana, only to lose it to the British drums of conquest in the 7 Years' War. Then came the chaos of revolution. Boundaries blurred, allegiances splintered, and restless settlers like Thomas Bassett carved homes along the wild Tombigbee. Spain's grip lingered in the humid Gulf Coast until the Stars and Stripes flew above Mobile in 1813, sealing a centuries-long contest. From disputed Yazoo lands to fleeting republics like West Florida, Alabama was born not of peace but of persistent claim and conquest, a land caught in the tempest of empire, now awakening as American soil. Alabama fever, a state born in fire and cotton. As the crimson sun rose over America's expanding frontier, a fever gripped the land, not of illness, but of ambition. It was 1817 when Alabama, torn from the Mississippi Territory, was sculpted into promise by the will of Congress and the hunger of white settlers who dreamed of cotton fortunes and slave-bound kingdoms. With the ink still drying on its charter, pioneers surged through wilderness trails to the fertile Black Belt, their wagons heavy with hope and chains. Huntsville echoed with the voices of men crafting a constitution that promised suffrage, though only to white men, as steamships and speculation transformed Cahaba into the first ghostly capital. Towns sprang like wildflowers, but beneath them, an ancient earth groaned as Native American tribes were pushed into exile under the cold force of the Indian Removal Act. Alabama's population exploded, cotton bloomed, and by the time the capital settled in Montgomery, its white-domed heart pulsing with Southern pride, the state had become a crucible of wealth, inequality, and destiny, forged in the fires of expansion and shadowed by the rising clouds of conflict. Ashes and echoes, Alabama in the crucible of war and rebirth. The drums of war thundered across Alabama in 1861 as it tore itself from the Union and stood, briefly, as a sovereign republic before joining the Confederacy, with Montgomery beating as its first capital. Beneath the grandeur, nearly half of Alabama's population was enslaved, shackled to the cotton empire that fueled its ambition. From quiet farms to cavalry in foreign fields, 120,000 Alabamians rode to war under the proud moniker, Yellowhammer, as cities whispered with fear and uncertain loyalty. When silence finally fell in 1865, it brought emancipation, military rule, and the dawn of an unsteady hope. Freedmen rose to power in a turbulent tide of Reconstruction, scripting new freedoms into law, even as shadows returned in white robes, Ku Klux terror and bitter white backlash. Schools opened, roads sprawled, and rights flickered, only to be smothered by fraud, fire, and the slow grind of segregation. By 1875, Alabama had shed its brief dreams of equality, choosing instead to inscribe division into law, echoing the violence of its birth into every mile of iron rail and schoolhouse wall. Shadows of the Vote, Alabama's century of silence and struggle. As the 20th century dawned, Alabama sealed its gates with the 1901 Constitution, a weaponized document cloaked in law but forged in fear. Through poll taxes, literacy tests, and bureaucratic snares, the state silenced hundreds of thousands. Black voices, Native voices, even the cries of poor white farmers, all erased from the Democratic chorus. Segregation was carved deeper into everyday life. Jails, schools, bus stops, and even restrooms were split by color lines, and those lines grew more rigid with each passing decade. But resistance burned quietly. Black communities, denied state support, built their own future with calloused hands and meager coins, erecting 387 Rosenwald schools across the state, places of learning rising against a tide of neglect. Yet still, the boll weevil devoured cotton fields, lynchings terrorized the night, and the South's betrayal pushed thousands northward in the Great Migration. Meanwhile, Birmingham exploded in iron and fire, earning its name, the Magic City, a beacon of hope and hardship alike. But even as it swelled, its voice remained stifled by a legislature frozen in time. Alabama, by law and custom, had not merely changed, it had conspired to remain the same, its soul caught in a century-long struggle between silence and the right to be heard. From fire and steel to freedom, Alabama's long ascent. Out of the smoke and thunder of World War II, Alabama surged into a new era. Cities like Mobile swelled with hope and industry as thousands poured in seeking a future beyond the faded cotton fields. Yet even as prosperity rose, political power clung stubbornly to the past. Rural elites held tight to their grip, starving cities like Birmingham of representation, choking progress in the name of control. But change crept in, first as court rulings, then as marches and movements. The cries of Selma, the courage on Montgomery's buses, and the fire in the eyes of those long silenced forced the world to listen. Alabama's transformation was not born of peace but pressure, not of ease but endurance. As steel cooled and rockets rose in Huntsville, and as new voting systems broke old chains, a more representative state began to emerge, scarred, resilient, and still reaching for the promise it had long denied so many. Storms of stone and sky, Alabama in the new millennium. In the dawn of the 21st century, Alabama stood at a crossroads of faith, fury, and nature's wrath. When Chief Justice Roy Moore defiantly planted a monument of the Ten Commandments in the state's heart, he ignited a firestorm, one not of law, but of belief. As court orders clashed with convictions, Montgomery became a battleground for the soul of the South, until the monument was removed under national scrutiny. Yet just as the storm of ideology passed, real storms tore through the land. In 2004, Hurricane Ivan unleashed devastation unseen in generations, and in 2011, the sky turned savage as 62 tornadoes carved tragedy across the state. From stone to wind, Alabama weathered both human defiance and nature's merciless hand, emerging scarred, humbled, and ever tested by the forces that shape it. Alabama proves that states, like people, can redeem their past. From the shame of slavery to the glory of space exploration, from segregation to scientific breakthroughs, this land keeps teaching America about transformation. Now we want to hear your Alabama story. Family roots? Civil rights memories? Or just love that Southern spirit? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for our next American State documentary.